Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alexandria and I'm currently living in my half-built out Ford Transit. I've been in the van now for about 3 weeks, almost a month now, and while I am really enjoying my time out here, there are already some things that I know that I want to change about my build and my build plan moving forward. And so in today's video, I thought that I would take you guys along with me as I explain the different things that I'm going to be changing and why. These are things that I did not really consider or consider heavily enough before actually moving into the van. It looks like there's a lot of light in here, which is really nice. You know, when I can open up my side door, I can have good lighting, but unfortunately a lot of the time that is not the case. I don't want to advertise that I'm living in my van. I don't want to have my side door open and have people walking by bothering me, asking me questions about the van. And so one of the biggest changes that I'm going to be making is installing a side window in my van. I'm going to show you guys really quick what it looks like when I have the door shut. It's like 11:30 right now, full on daylight on the van. And that's the difference. I apologize for the bad quality. I know it is super dark. Trying to block the heat with my front, thermal curtains, having the door shut, and then also having my lights off like they just went. It is extremely dark in here. And so one of the first changes I'm going to be making is installing a side window, not only for light, but also for ventilation. The second thing that I'm going to be changing about my build is something that I honestly might include later on down the road, but that's going to save me a lot of money, at least in the short term. I insulated my build as well as I could. I spent a ton of money on my insulation. The second component of this was installing a heater. I think I'm probably still going to run the wire in case I ever do change my mind, and I do want that in the future. But for now, I am really leaning towards not installing a heater right off the bat, first of all, and second, to install a much more cost-effective heater, because at this point, I've already spent close to $7,000 or $8,000 on my build, and adding an extra like $2,800 to $3,000 for a heater just really does not seem worth it for me right now. So one of the next changes that I am highly considering making, but I haven't fully figured out how I'm going to adjust, is the type of shower. Hi, Gila. Is the type of shower that I'm going to have. If you guys saw my video last week, you saw that right now to shower, I'm currently using this Nemo Helio. You gonna be the star of the show? I am currently using this Nemo Helio to shower. It works really well, especially when I'm in places like this, and the pressure system and shower head make it really convenient and honestly almost like a normal shower that you would have at home. I fill it with warm water or I leave it in the sun for a little bit and you really can't tell the difference. It's really making me reconsider the type of shower setup that I want long-term in the van. Initially, if you guys saw my previous videos, you know that I've been considering doing a half-height shower in my van. Last week, I saw someone who had a really genius design, and so I did not come up with this idea on my own. A regular countertop. It is butcher block, so it's going to match the rest of my build. And then they had some storage up top, which is something that I would not have if I were to go with my original design that hinges up. And with this, their toilet is underneath, so they have it out on slides, but then their shower was actually on the bottom pan. It's just a pull-out shower. It pulls out into your alleyway or into your galley, whatever you want to call it, and allows you to shower kind of in the middle of your van. For me, as a solo person and as somebody who honestly is not showering as much as I initially had expected, I was thinking I was gonna shower like every day or two. I think that this could be a great way to not only save some space, but also to simplify the process for myself. So the fourth change that I'm planning on making in my build is something that's actually gonna end up costing me more money, and that is replacing this toilet. Now, I know a lot of people don't have toilets in their vans. I completely understand why. It is usually pretty easy to find a restroom. The thing that I want to change about this though is not having a toilet, but it is the type of toilet. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I have used it very sparingly, probably 24 times or so, and unfortunately, I have already had to fully dump this toilet twice. I'm using it very infrequently right now, and even still, I'm having to dump it constantly, and so my plan right now is to keep this probably through my entire build while I am building, and eventually, and during my build, I want to plumb in a Nature's Head vent. This is for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, you have to dump it far less frequently. Most people say that even with 2 people, if they're using it sparingly, like I plan on doing in the future, they only need to dump once a month. Obviously, number 1, which goes in the front, you would have to dump more frequently depending on how hydrated you are, and so that will still be a pretty frequent process, but it's definitely not as challenging as having to take this all apart, find a good place to dump it or a safe place to dump dump it. But in addition to that, I've also had issues with it overflowing. This toilet overflowed when it wasn't even a third of the way through to red. I legitimately had waste like sitting in this top component. When you open up the lid, was not only disgusting, but it's unsanitary because when I go to dump it, I'm not able to control as well where that waste is going. So it's really, really difficult for me to actually dump that time. And what I ended up having to do, which is actually as disgusting as it sounds, is I had to take a towel and soak up the waste that was on top. It was just liquid, which is great, but I had to soak up the waste so that way when I popped off the top, it didn't spill everywhere, because obviously that could be a hazard. In addition to that bad experience though, in general, I've just not been super happy with this toilet. Most people who have them say that they don't have a lot of issues with smell. It smells. It really smells like the chemicals that are in the bottom basin that break things down. It smells like you went to the bathroom after you've gone to the bathroom, even after you flushed it. And that is just something that I've heard so many people sing praises for Nature's Head on, is that honestly, they just really don't smell. You cannot tell that there's a bathroom in there, and so they're properly vented, which I obviously would vent out to the bottom of the van. There should be much less odor. It'll be much easier to dump. You toss it in the trash and it's a lot less embarrassing, it's a lot more convenient, and it's a lot less frequent that you actually have to dump. And finally, the fifth thing that I'm going to be changing about my van is something that I was planning on doing already, but I'm going to be beefing it up even more, and that is adding more insulation. Now, as I've mentioned, I've been in some pretty extreme temperatures over the past month or so, but I do think that I can do a much better job insulating the van so that way it's a lot more comfortable for me when I am in these situations. One of the biggest issues I've seen so far is, especially when I'm sleeping at night, I'm essentially covered in a big metal case. I just feel like I'm surrounded by cold air, and from what I understand, this foil insulation, in addition to just using more of the Thinsulate that I do have some extra of, should really help mitigate some of these swings in temperature. So at this point, those are the only changes that I am planning on making, but with that, they are pretty major changes, I realize, and so it's definitely going to impact how I progress through the build, but hopefully, because most of those things are actually simplifying, it will allow me to progress a little bit faster, save a little bit more money, and also make changes that I think are ultimately going to impact my comfortability in the van and how much I'm able to enjoy this lifestyle. Anyways, without getting too deep into that, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I hope this gave you a better sense for how I'm looking at my build and proceeding with my build, and if you are in a similar position or considering building a van in the future, hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight into my experience and the why behind the things that I'm doing in the build. Next week, I'm going to be bringing you guys along with me on my backpacking adventure that I'm about to embark on, and then I'm also planning on reviewing my month of finances for my first month in the van. So if you're interested in seeing those topics, make sure to subscribe, stay tuned for those, and I will see you guys in the weeks that come.